All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time for 2025, nonetheless, here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. And here on the last day of 2025, I want to take this time out to wish a happy and healthy new year to each and every one of you. And thank you all for your support through these last 365 days. As what is more than likely going to be my last talk, podcast, fireside chat, whatever you want to call it, okay, for 2025. I want to take this time out to talk about the Miami Dolphins. And these Dolphins began this season with a record of 1-6, but then they would rally to win five out of their next six in order to hang around in the playoff conversation. But when the Dolphins were officially eliminated from postseason contention following their loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers a couple of weeks ago, their head coach, Mike McDaniel, left any and everything on the table going forward. And that included the possibility of the Dolphins benching quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And soon that possibility would become a reality, as following the loss to the Steelers, McDaniel decided to go with rookie quarterback Quinn Ewers for the remainder of the season. Now, with Ewers under center, the Dolphins are 1-1, and they're looking to finish on a positive note this Sunday in Foxborough with a win over the division champions, the New England Patriots. And as Tua has been a spectator in each of Miami's last two games, you have to wonder if his time in South Florida could be winding down. Now, the Dolphins, of course, selected Tua fifth overall back in 2020, and his best season to date came in 2023 when he passed for 4,624 yards and threw 29 touchdowns to help as he helped Miami win 11 games, and they qualified for the postseason for the second consecutive year. And fresh off of signing that contract extension in 2024, Tua was banged up last year. And his play this year has not been good enough, okay? Which at the end of the day could make Miami have to make a very painful decision for next year. And the reason why I say painful, because when Tua signed that contract extension, okay, it also included more than $167 million in guaranteed money. And on top of that, the Dolphins are looking at a $99 million cap hit if they were to release him. If they release him prior to June 1st, it's going to be $99 million for this year. If it's a post June 1st cut, then we're talking about $67 million for 2026 and the additional $32 million for 2027. But I'm clearly not there, okay? But if I were to read this room correctly, I feel that Tua might have displayed his last game for Miami, okay? Because after a second consecutive underwhelming season for this team overall, all signs point to Mike McDaniel returning as the head coach of the Dolphins, unless he's swayed someplace else in his next coaching cycle. And as McDaniel's job is more than likely going to be on the line next season, should he decide to remain in Miami, especially with a new general manager in town. Remember, Chris Greer was let go earlier this season. Mike McDaniel is going to do whatever he has to do to remain employed with Miami. And if it's going to come down to either him or Tua next season, guess what? You know who's going to win out right there at this point. So at this point, it looks like the Dolphins, especially if McDaniel stays, they're going to have to absorb the cap hit for Tua, because even though that there are some teams out there that probably are going to be willing to take a look at him, okay, nobody's going to trade for Tua, because of his contract, and also have to give Miami draft capital in return. And then, of course, you also look at Tua's injury history. 2023 was the only season where Tagovailoa played an entire season. He has been banged up And unfortunately for his sake, it's the head injuries. Okay. He was in line to play all 17 games this season for Miami, but at the end of the day, Mike McDaniel just pulled the quarter and said, hey, we are going in a different direction. Now, if things continue to play out the way that they are looking like they're going to play out, Mike McDaniel is now going to be the second head coach who appears to be done with Tua. Remember, former Dolphins head coach and current Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores once upon a time wanted to draft Justin Herbert as opposed to Tua. And of course, Herbert went one pick behind Tagovailoa to the Los Angeles Chargers. And of course, when Brian Flores was the head coach of the Dolphins, he had no problem telling Tua about this. Okay. But nonetheless, I say it like this: buckle up for what I feel is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Miami Dolphins, because aside from Tua, there's also the possibility that this team releases Tyreek Hill. You know, Tyreek had the dislocated kneecap as well as tearing his ACL earlier this season. And I think Tua's done there, okay, unless we see this organization do a 180. Of course, another question is going to be Miami's going to have themselves a new GM. They fired Chris Greer earlier this season. Will Stephen Ross, the Dolphins team owner, simply just promote interim GM Champ Kelly, or will he go out there outside of the organization and bring somebody else in? We got to wait and see. But like I said, when it comes to Tua, I think he's going to be a post June 1st cut. I think he's going to have another opportunity in the NFL, because the way I see things right now, I see this in a similar situation with what is going to happen with the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are done with Kyler Murray. I think what's going to happen there, because of course he gets that roster bonus a couple of days after the start of the new league year. That's why they basically told him to go home. No teams are going to want to trade and take on those contracts. So a guy like Tua is going to have an opportunity to play in the NFL next season. It's going to be on the cheap, and he's going to go someplace where he has an opportunity to compete. So we got to wait and see what happens there. But nonetheless, I think it's getting close to the end of the line for him in Miami, in my opinion. Who's going to be the Dolphins starting quarterback next season? That's going to be a big question right there. If Mike McDaniel does the return to Miami, is he going to go with Quinn Ewers? Is he going to draft somebody else? Are they going to trade, sign a free agent? We don't know. But I still think a lot is on the table. And if Mike McDaniel truly does decide to stay there, like I said before, he's going to do whatever it takes to have success, and whoever's going to give him the best opportunity to have that success. You look at it again, going back to Tua's best season in Miami in the NFL, of course, was 2023. A lot of that was basically short passes, getting the football to the likes of Jalen Waddle, getting the football to Tyreek Hill, and letting them do their thing. Tua, you know, he hasn't been as accurate this season. And if you follow Mike McDaniel, he comes from that Kyle Shanahan tree, who, of course, came from the Mike Shanahan tree, who, of course, a lot of its, you know, shape falls back to the old West Coast offense on the Bill Walsh. And then, of course, for you old schoolers, the Midwest offense and the Paul Brown. But nonetheless, it's all about timing. It's all about being accurate, and they want their quarterbacks to be accurate. You look at Mike McDaniel during his time, and I know it hasn't worked out so far, but he's put an emphasis on running the football. He's put an emphasis on, you know, quarterback play, cohesion on offense, and it simply has not been there this season for Miami. So nonetheless, I think Tua is going to have to go and continue his NFL career someplace else. It's going to be very interesting, okay, because this Dolphins team, I'm not going to say that they're at the crossroads, but I think, you know, a lot can happen. I think the next big move is whether or not that Mike McDaniel decides to stay. Remember, the Dolphins don't really have an official general manager as of yet. I know that Champ Kelly is in that seat, but he's on an interim basis. What's going to happen there? Could that decision play into whether or not Mike McDaniel wants to remain with this organization? We've got to wait and see. But nonetheless, let's just say for the sake of argument, Mike McDaniel does decide to leave Miami. I really don't see another head coach coming in from outside of that system who's going to want to inherit Tua. More than likely, he would want to draft his guy. But nonetheless, it hasn't worked out for Tua in Miami. Um, he's been there for 6 years, but at the end of the day, sometimes it just doesn't work out. I think he's going to have to go to another team and reinvent himself. How is he going to do that? I'm not sure, and I'm not saying that to knock him. Okay, but you look at the situation in Miami. The Dolphins worked on their run game. They gave him receivers, had a solid offensive line, and for what it's worth, he just couldn't get it done because, again, no disrespect to Tua, he's not a quarterback who's going to elevate the people around him. Okay, it has to be a perfect situation for him, and it was almost perfect for him in Miami. The elements, you name it, but he just could not get it done. But I think at the end of the day, we are seeing the final days for Tua Tagovailoa in a Dolphins uniform. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, big time football going on over the next couple of days. Of course, the college football playoff is set to kick off tonight. So, with that said, definitely keep this channel in your rotation as I'm going to have plenty to talk about in regards to the quarterfinals of the CFP, as well as the final weekend in the NFL regular season. Also, if you're on the X, definitely check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, definitely check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. As I started, and I'm going to end it like this, a very happy and healthy new year to each and every one of you. Thank you for all the support for this year. And like I always say, the best is yet to come. But as always, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.